The medical bay of the Interstellar Research Station Harmony 7 was quiet, save for the low hum of machines. The nurse, a tall, slender alien with smooth blue skin and large violet eyes, adjusted her scanner as she prepared for another routine checkup. Humans were still new to the Galactic Union, and their biology fascinated her. But nothing could have prepared her for what she was about to witness. The human patient, a simple mechanic named John, sat on the examination table, rubbing his arm where a small injury had been treated. The nurse, whom John had nicknamed Blue for her azure complexion, ran a final scan over his wound. "Your tissue regeneration is impressive," Blue remarked, her voice melodic. "Most species require days to heal such a wound. For you, it will be hours." John chuckled. "Yeah, we humans bounce back fast. But hey, at least we're not as fragile as you guys think." Blue tilted her head. "You say that, yet your species also exhibits unusual reactions to stress." Before she could elaborate, the station's alarms blared. A deep, mechanical voice announced, "Warning. Gravity generator failure in Sector 4. Evacuate immediately." Panic erupted. The lights flickered, and the floor trembled. Blue's instincts kicked in, her people froze in fear during emergencies, relying on logic to survive. But John? His reaction was bizarre. Instead of freezing, he laughed. A loud, almost reckless sound. Then, in one swift motion, he grabbed Blue's wrist and yanked her toward the emergency hatch. "Come on, Blue. We gotta move." She stumbled after him, stunned. Why was he laughing? Why wasn't he afraid? As they sprinted through the shaking corridors, dodging falling debris, Blue realized something incredible: humans didn't just endure fear. They thrived in it. And that changed everything. The station shuddered violently as John and Blue sprinted through the corridor. Emergency lights bathed the walls in a pulsing red glow, and distant alarms wailed like wounded beasts. Blue's hearts pounded, two of them, beating out of sync in her chest, a trait of her species when terrified. Yet the human beside her? He was grinning. Not just smiling, grinning, as if this were some thrilling game. His grip on her wrist was firm, pulling her forward with an energy that defied logic. "Why aren't you afraid?" Blue wanted to scream. But she couldn't. Her people never showed panic. They analyzed. They calculated. They did not laugh in the face of death. A ceiling panel tore loose ahead, crashing down in a shower of sparks. John didn't hesitate. He yanked Blue sideways, shoving her against the wall as metal screeched past them. "Close one," he barked, still grinning. Blue's mind raced. This is wrong. This is all wrong. Humans were supposed to be fragile, easily broken by stress, prone to fear-induced shutdowns. That's what the Galactic Medical Database said. But John? He was alive in a way she had never seen. The escape pod. They rounded a corner, and there it was, escape pod 12, its hatch still open. A relief. But then Blue saw the problem. The door mechanism was damaged. Sparks spat from the control panel, and the hatch groaned, threatening to seal shut. John didn't slow down. He leaped at the console, slamming his palm against the manual override. The door hissed, stuck halfway. "Go, go, go," he shouted, pushing Blue toward the gap. She slipped through, turning just in time to see John throw himself under the descending door. It scraped against his back, but he rolled free at the last second, landing inside with a breathless laugh. The pod sealed behind them. Silence. Then, the roar of engines as the pod ejected, hurling them into the safety of open space. Blue stared at John, her mind reeling. He was breathing hard, sweat on his brow, but his eyes were bright. "That," he said, wiping his face, "was fun." Blue could only blink. Fun? The escape pod drifted in the silent void, its stabilizers humming as it awaited retrieval. Blue sat stiffly in her seat, her large violet eyes fixed on John. He had already recovered, stretching his arms behind his head as if they had just finished a light jog instead of fleeing a disaster. "You should be in shock," she finally said, her voice sharper than intended. John raised an eyebrow. "Why? We made it, didn't we?" "That's not the point." Blue's fingers tightened around the edge of her seat. "Your reaction was illogical." "Laughing? Grinning? Your species' survival protocols are supposed to prioritize fear responses, not, whatever that was." John shrugged. Fear's useful, sure. But if you let it freeze you up, you die." Blue opened her mouth to argue, but then the pod's comm crackled to life. "This is Rescue Ship Delta 9. Survivors, confirm status." John leaned forward and thumbed the response. "2 alive and kicking. 1 slightly confused alien, 1 human who could really go for a beer right now." Blue shot him a look. The medical report that shook the Galactic Union. Back on the rescue vessel, Blue immediately went to the medical bay, not for herself, but to report John's impossible behavior. The lead physician, a seasoned, gray-scaled Zurian, listened with growing disbelief. "You're saying the human was enjoying the crisis?" "Not just enjoying it," Blue insisted. "He was energized by it. His reflexes were faster, his decision-making sharper. It was like the danger made him stronger." The Zurian's frills twitched in skepticism. "That defies all known biological principles. Stress is supposed to degrade performance, not enhance it." Blue pulled up John's medical scans from the station's database. "Look at his adrenaline levels. They spiked, but instead of overloading his system, they optimized it." The Zurian fell silent. Then, slowly, he muttered, "This explains so much." "What do you mean?" Blue asked. The Zurian tapped the screen, pulling up an old classified file. "Project, Human Resilience. The Galactic Council once considered invading Earth," he admitted. "But after observing human wars, they abandoned the idea. Now I understand why." Blue's breath caught. "Because humans don't break under pressure." "No," the Zurian said grimly. "They thrive in it." John sat in the mess hall of the rescue ship, chewing on a protein bar that tasted vaguely like cardboard. Around him, aliens of various species kept their distance, their eyes flicking toward him with something new in their gaze, wariness. Blue entered, her posture stiff. She slid into the seat across from him, her violet eyes searching his face. "You've caused quite a stir," she said quietly. John smirked. "What, by not dying? By defying biological norms?" She hesitated, then leaned in. "John, do you know what your people are?" He raised an eyebrow. "Mechanics? Loud eaters? Predators?" The word hung in the air. John stopped chewing. Blue tapped a data pad, projecting a hologram between them, an old Galactic Union report. "When first contact was made, your planet was classified as a death world. Extreme weather, rampant diseases, megafauna that regularly hunted humans in your primitive eras." John shrugged. "Yeah, Earth's kind of a rough neighborhood." So, Blue said slowly, "you evolved under constant threat. Your brain doesn't just handle stress, it weaponizes it." John leaned back, thoughtful. "Huh. Explains why I always test better under pressure." Blue's comm chimed. A directive flashed on her screen: proceed with full neurological evaluation. Priority clearance granted. Her fingers tightened around the pad. John noticed. "They're not gonna dissect me, are they?" "No," Blue said, too quickly. "But, they want to understand." And some factions in the Union fear what they don't understand. A shadow passed over John's face. For the first time, Blue saw something in his eyes that wasn't amusement or defiance. Caution. The evaluation. The med bay lights were too bright. John lay on the scanning table as 3 alien physicians, none of whom introduced themselves, hovered over readouts. Remarkable cortisol modulation, muttered a feathered Keswick. Adrenaline receptors are twice as efficient as any known species, added a reptilian Vorth. Blue stood in the corner, watching John's jaw clench as the scanners probed deeper. "Hey, Blue?" John called suddenly. "Remember that time I said dissection was a joke?" She stiffened. "Yes? Still a joke, right?" Before she could answer, the door hissed open. A towering Zurian in command insignia entered. "Nurse," he snapped at Blue. "Council wants this human transferred to Research Sector Alpha immediately." John sat up. "Yeah, that's gonna be a no." The Zurian's frills flared. "You are not in a position to refuse." Blue stepped forward. "Sir, protocol states." "Protocol," the Zurian interrupted, "has changed." John swung his legs off the table, landing lightly on his feet. "Funny," he said, smiling that same reckless smile from the dying station. "So has my patience." The Zurian commander didn't even have time to reach for his stunner before John moved. 1 second, the human was standing calmly by the med table. The next, he was a blur of motion. John's elbow snapped up, catching the Zurian under the jaw with a crack of cartilage. As the alien staggered, John yanked the stunner from his belt and fired twice, thwip thwip, dropping the 2 nearest scientists before they could scream. Blue froze, her instincts screaming at her to flee, to call for help, to do anything, but her body wouldn't obey. John turned toward her, the stunner humming in his grip. "You gonna try to stop me?" Blue's voice came out strangled. You attacked Union personnel." "They were gonna kidnap me," John said, as if explaining basic math. "I don't like that." A groan came from the floor. The Zurian was stirring. John stepped over and tapped him once more with the stunner. "Nighty-night, Scales." Then he grabbed Blue's wrist. "Come on." "What?" "No. I'm not." "You helped me," John hissed. "They'll blame you for this. Now move." Her legs obeyed before her mind could protest. The ship's blind spot. John moved like he'd studied the ship's schematics for years. He took service corridors even Blue didn't know existed, his steps eerily silent for a creature with such heavy bones. "How are you doing this?" Blue whispered as they crouched behind a coolant pipe. John flashed teeth. "Same way rats survive in walls. You learn where they don't look." Alarm klaxons began blaring. "Intruder alert. All security to Sector 9. John snorted. "Sector 9? Amateurs." He pried open a maintenance hatch, revealing a narrow crawlspace. "This goes straight to the shuttle bay. 2 minutes, we're gone." Blue hesitated. "I can't. I'm not a fugitive." John's grin faded. "You are now. That's how this works. They don't care if you're innocent, they care that you saw." A distant clank made them both stiffen. "Boots. Lots of them." John's hand tightened around the stunner. "Last chance, Blue. Stay and get mind wiped, or run with the monster they're scared of." Her breath came in short, panicked bursts. Then, she crawled into the duct. The truth in the dark. The shuttle was a small courier vessel, barely rated for 2. John hotwired the ignition with terrifying ease. "You stole a ship?" Blue gasped as engines roared to life. "Borrowed," John corrected, slamming the throttle. The shuttle shot out of the bay just as security skidded into view. Alarms wailed. Tractor beams flickered, too late. They were already in open space. Blue gripped her seat, shaking. This is insane. Where do we even go? John didn't answer at first. Then, quietly, home. He tapped the NAV computer. A star map flared, and there it was. Earth. Blue stared at the tiny blue dot, her stomach twisting. They'll follow us. They'll burn your world for this. John's smile returned, but this time, it was different. Cold. Let them try. The shuttle's engines hummed as it hurtled through the void, leaving the Galactic Union ship far behind. Blue sat rigid in the co-pilot's seat, her mind racing. She had just betrayed her people for a human, a creature her own government now considered a threat. And yet, John piloted the ship with an ease that unsettled her. His hands moved over the controls like he'd been born among the stars, not on some backwater, death world. You're not just a mechanic, Blue said quietly. John didn't look at her. Never said I was. A warning light flashed on the console. Blue's breath hitched. They're tracking us. Yep. John's tone was disturbingly calm. They'll send warships. Probably. Blue's hands clenched. You're not afraid? John finally turned, his eyes dark in the dim cockpit light. Terrified. But fear's just fuel. The NAV computer beeped, a proximity alert. Something was out there. Waiting. The fleet that wasn't there. At first, Blue thought it was a glitch. The scanners flickered, showing blips at the edge of detection, ships, but their signatures were wrong. Too quiet. Too cold. Like ghosts. What is that? She whispered. John exhaled slowly. Homecoming committee. Then the comm crackled to life. A voice, rough and human, spoke. Identify. John leaned forward. Fox 2 Alpha. Call sign, Wanderlust. A pause. Then, welcome back, Lieutenant. Blue's blood ran cold. Lieutenant? The ghost ships resolved on the scanners, stealth frigates, sleek and deadly, their hulls matte black. No flags. No markings. John smirked. Surprise. Earth's got a navy. The truth about first contact. The stealth fleet escorted them to a massive carrier hidden in the asteroid belt. Inside, Blue gaped at the rows of fighters, the armed soldiers, the sheer scale of humanity's secret strength. A grizzled officer with cybernetic eyes greeted them. John. You blew your cover again. John shrugged. Got lonely. The officer turned to Blue. Nurse. You've seen too much. She braced for the worst, but John stepped between them. She's with me. A silent stare-off. Then the officer snorted. Fine. But she learns everything. He led them to a briefing room. A hologram flared, Earth, surrounded by Union ships. First contact wasn't an accident, the officer said. The Union tested us. Sent pirates, plagues, probes. We survived. So they pretended to be friendly. Blue's stomach churned. That's not possible. John laughed bitterly. Why do you think they never invaded? They tried. The hologram changed, showing wreckage in Jupiter's orbit. Human wreckage. And they lost, the officer said softly. The hologram flickered, showing the graveyard of Union warships drifting near Jupiter, twisted metal and frozen corpses, half buried in ice. Blue's hands trembled. This was a battle? The grizzled officer nodded. Their diplomatic fleet came armed with planet crackers. We sent them home in pieces. John leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Turns out, Humans fight harder when you threaten our kids. Blue's mind reeled. The Galactic Union preached peace, progress, lies. All of it. A klaxon blared. The officer tapped his earpiece, then grimaced. Union just declared you both rogue elements. They're mobilizing the 7th Armada. John cracked his knuckles. How many ships? Enough to glass a continent. Pfft. We've had worse Tuesdays. Blue whirled on him. How can you joke at a time like this? John's smile faded. Because laughing's how we spit in death's face. He grabbed her shoulders. Now. You gotta choose. The nurse's rebellion. Blue's entire life had been rules, order, obedience. But as she stared at the hologram, at the truth the Union had buried, something in her snapped. I'll help, she whispered. Then louder, tell me what to do. The officer grinned. Ever seen a real war, nurse? The trap. The 7th Armada arrived in a storm of fire, their dreadnoughts blotting out the stars. Human vessel, boomed the lead Zurian commander. Surrender the fugitives, or be erased. Static. Then. John's face filled every Union viewscreen. Hey, Scales. Miss me? The Zurian's frills flared crimson. Open fire. Plasma lanced toward Earth. And splashed harmlessly against a suddenly visible planetary shield. The officer's voice cut through the chaos. Fox Squadron, engage. From the moon's shadow, 1,000 human ships erupted. The reason they fear us. It wasn't a battle. It was slaughter. The Union fought with precision, with strategy. Humans fought like demons. Ships rammed at suicidal speeds. Boarding parties laughed through vacuum breaches. One pilot ejected into a dreadnought's bridge, just to punch the captain. Blue watched it all from the carrier, her medical training useless here. This is madness. John, strapping into a fighter, winked. Nah. This is fun. As his ship launched, she finally understood. Fear didn't break humans. It unlocked them. Epilogue, the new dawn. The shattered armada fled. Earth stood unbroken. In the ruins of the Union's lies, Blue faced a choice. John offered a hand. Welcome to the monkey house. She took it. Somewhere in the stars, a new signal blared, human laughter, echoing across the void. And the galaxy learned to tremble.